lecturer at Queen Mary University of London. So it's pretty clear Boris Johnson isn't going anywhere. So that debate appears to be over, unless he's slept on it and thinks differently this morning. The only way for him to go then would be to be forced out. And as Nada was describing, there could be a confidence vote in the Conservative Party, but the opposition could also call one, couldn't they, in the House behind me?
Well, there are two types of confidence votes. So one's a vote of confidence in Boris Johnson's leadership of the Conservative Party, which is a matter for Conservative MPs, and that's what most people are talking about. There's, of course, the ability for the opposition to call a motion of confidence in the government, but if Boris Johnson could lose that motion, then the whole government would fall and there would be an election. And I'm pretty sure that a great number of Conservative MPs don't want to see that happen. So Labour doesn't have the votes to do that, and I don't think there would be enough Conservative MPs crossing the aisle for that. So I really think it comes back down to the question of his leadership of the Conservative Party and that internal vote among Conservative MPs.
A fascinating time for the likes of yourself and your students to try to make sense of all this, because it is unprecedented, isn't it, for a Prime Minister to refuse to go when their cabinet is calling on them to go?
Well, if we think back even to Theresa May's premiership, which was on pretty rocky shoals at various points, Boris Johnson has now exceeded the number of ministerial resignations that Theresa May experienced before she decided to stand down. So this is pretty extraordinary, to have this scale of resignation for close allies of the Prime Minister to go to the Prime Minister and tell him to resign. Technically, of course, the Prime Minister can refuse. At this stage, there's nothing illegitimate about him refusing to do so. It seems he wants to test his support among MPs. Personally, I don't really understand why he is so dedicated to that, because he's almost certainly going to lose that vote. But if it's a matter of he wants to keep fighting to the bitter end, then I think he's probably got until Monday or Tuesday to hold out if he wishes to do so.
A constitutional crisis would occur, wouldn't it, if there was a Prime Minister, a leader of a party in Downing Street without the support of the party. The debate is whether or not he has the support of the party, but it does seem as though it's only Boris Johnson and a couple of very close allies that actually believe that he does have that support. So at the moment, we could be in very tricky waters, couldn't we, constitutionally, if we have someone holed up in Downing Street that doesn't have the support of the country, arguably, and certainly not the party.
Well, conventionally, the Prime Minister is the leader of the party that commands a majority in the House of Commons. There are instances where someone can be removed as a party leader, and there might be a bit of an interim period. So, for example, after the 2010 election, Gordon Brown resigned as leader of the Labour Party, but stayed on as Prime Minister until the coalition between the Conservatives and Liberal Democrats was worked out. You could see something like that happening. Ultimately, the sovereign, the Queen, does have the power to dismiss a Prime Minister. It's not exercised in this country for a very long time. It has been exercised in the Commonwealth through Governors General not too long ago. But that, I think Boris Johnson's reputation really would be in tatters if it was seen that he was putting the Queen, a 96-year-old woman, in a very difficult position to make decisions she doesn't want to have to be in a position to make.
Yeah, Richard Johnson, I think you're absolutely right, should run a mile from any sort of political interference as it could be construed. Thanks for joining us. Rosemary, we'll be following this over the course of the day.